Lecture here before? How many of you, anywhere before? Okay, fine. How many of you have seen Nathan lecture here more than once? Okay. This is Nathan's, he's a third-time offender. And every time he's come here, he's done some different stuff, and this lecture is going to be different yet again. He's doing a lot more with comedy, doing some stuff with mentalism these days. And he's got just some great stuff. And he's a joy to be with, a wonderful guy, a funny guy, a very creative guy, and a damn fine magician. Please welcome my buddy Nathan Kranzo. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you very much. I saw there was a few people that raised their hands that had been here before, so that's very cool. Maybe you just forgot who I was. It's a new lecture, let's go check it out. And the new people that have not seen me before, I'm very happy that you're here as well. I want to kind of talk about something really quick before I jump into the lecture. I don't usually do this, but one of the guys mentioned this at dinner. They said, how did you get interested in magic? And it made me think about it because it's a really interesting story. I was at a restaurant with my parents, and I mentioned this briefly, it was a tableside magician. It was like a strolling guy, and he was just doing his thing. I don't remember what it was like a Fridays or a Chili's. He was just going from table to table. And I'll never forget because my dad leaned over to my mom and said, make sure that guy doesn't come over here. That's funny because now it's like, he's got me. It's like I'm the monster. He created a monster with that. But my mom was cool. My mom was like, no, just let him stop by. And if it's weird, we'll just say thanks and we'll shove him on his way. And he came over and just did the simplest thing. And then that made me just go to the magic shop. And then when I went to the magic shop, the guy totally worked me over. He showed me what he called wish paper, and it was just flash paper. He took out some flash paper and lit it on fire, and it turned into like a super ball. And like when I was a kid, that was like the biggest deal, like a super ball. And I was like, yeah, fire and a toy. That's me. I'm all over that, So he was nice enough to, at 11 years old, to sell me some flash paper. And yeah, what a nice guy. And a super ball. And because I didn't have a lighter, he was nice and just gave me a lighter. What a nice guy, right? And so I get home and I actually have some flash paper. So I do this. I basically light it, and I'm wishing for a girlfriend because he didn't teach me any sleights. He just gave me the ball and the flash. So I'm like, hot chicks, girlfriends, and I'm just burning my fingers. So eventually I learned to wish for smaller, more practical things. So I'll show you what I eventually wished for. Money. Because I got enough of those and then I just bought a girlfriend, right? Okay. Maybe where I'm from, just outside of Detroit, so it's funny where I'm from. Plus I have the special jacket that protects me from the thieves. It's cashmere. Huh? I know. And this is where some of the best coin magicians in the world have used that line, so I feel bad using it again. But not that bad. There's number one, there's number two, number three is on my knee that I keep... Oops, sorry, wrong hand. I never know where they're going to pop up. They're very stubborn. These are actually the peace dollars today, and they're almost 100 years old. They've changed hands a lot, so much so that they'll do it on their own. Thank you, Curtis Cam, for that one. They'll fly from fingertip to fingertip, from left to right, from here to here. They just seem to melt across silently and effortlessly. Sometimes I do it in front of the mirror at home in the bathroom. I'm just like, do it again! That was cool! Do it again! My wife's like, what are you doing in there? Coin magic, I promise. Yes. Stick with me. We'll let you pick top or bottom. Top. Watch from the top. Finger to finger, hand to hand, just seems to melt across. That's number two. And the reason why this is so deceptive is because I have 3 coins and you only have 2 eyes. Except for like 3 months ago at a lecture, there's a dude with 1 eye. And it got kind of weird. He started arguing. I'm like, no, just watch. Just watch. I think everybody's 2-eyed today, so. No offense if you're just 1 eye. I had a buddy like that in college. We called him Uno Man. So, sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. Stick with me. We'll put one in the pocket. If I put one in the pocket, then there's just 2 coins. Most of you have 2 eyes, so it evens up the score. But if I stop my foot, it looks like 3. But it's just an illusion. There's only 2. There's just 2. Did I mention I encourage roofies? The more you drink, the better the magic is, I swear. We'll try to make them go from, so we can go 2 to 1. Yep. There it is, stuck again. Sometimes they get stuck. They're very stubborn. We can just make them all go. That's what I call the coin workout. Thank you very much. Thank you. Where were you guys when I was in court last week? That's when I needed your support the most. No? Okay. No, the coins are still here. They're just little specks of silver, what I like to call it, specks of silver. Some people can't see them. I like to call them little specks of silver because specks of silver turn into bigger specks. That's speck number 1. And speck number 2, remember, was on my elbow. And last but not least, if I stomp my foot, I should be able to get speck number 3. There we go. 1, 2, 3 coins. Save the day. Thank you so much. 1, 2, 3. Nobody got hurt. Nobody cried. I'm happy. And you look happy too, sir. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick. We'll let you call it.
Tails.
You're right, Nick. He's psychic. Psychic. Tails. I know I did that gag last time, but it's still kind of funny. And the heads is kind of awkward. It's like, scares the children. They run away. Sometimes that's good. The children just disappear. Ta-da! And not the kids shows, but I'm working on the transition from the raccoon tail to a card trick. So, would you guys like to see some card magic?
Yeah.
All right, you like that transition? You guys can use that if you want. Credit me properly. Credit me properly. I created this. There's so many different ways to have a card selected. I'm fascinated by that. Not so much what happens afterwards, but the selection process. Oh, it's so beautiful sometimes to me. You can have a card peeked at, dribbled to, riffled to, thought of. You could name a card, we could spell to a card, we could deal to a card. I could fan them out. I created this a few years ago, actually. This is something that I've been doing for maybe about 7 years. I spread the cards in between my hands. All right, so credit me properly once again next time you use that, okay? And what is your name, bud?
Chuck.
Chuck, actually, we met earlier real quick. Chuck, if you don't mind, take any card out you like. And you know what? That could have been the old Chuck Classic Force. I don't want you to think I'm making you take the card. Because I really could have just, said, hey, Chuck, he's in the front row. He's not really paying attention. He just grabs a card. He goes for the ace of spades or my force card. So we'll make it really completely random. I'll just kind of fan the cards out here in a perfect fan. And I'll run my finger over the spread, Chuck, and then whenever you want, Chuck, just call out stop, okay?
Stop.
Right there?
Yeah.
Now remember, there's no way I could have known what card Chuck would stop me at. And just to make sure that I don't have a stack or anything, we'll just have, would you give those a quick, that's perfect, good enough, quick shuffle. And now the cards are thoroughly shuffled, it's completely free selection, and we'll have you, let's do this, we'll have you throw it back in the deck. I was going to have you sign it, but we're all friends here. We know what's going to happen. The card goes back into the center of the deck. I'm not even going to do a shuffle or a pass. We'll get there eventually. Usually the card would be found in maybe my pocket. It will jump to the top of the deck. It will change color, something like that, usual card tricks. But I will make the card appear on its own in your own hands, Chuck. What I'll do is basically just have you hold the cards in essentially like dealing grip. And then the only difference is take your other hand and place it on top. So essentially you're kind of sandwiching the deck in between your hands, okay? Chuck, would you do that for me? One hand on top. Excellent. And kind of squeeze them. And if you don't mind, stand up and just kind of point your fingers right at me. All right? Now, Chuck, this is the cool thing. If you just relax your top hand slightly and keep your left hand stationary, you'll actually feel the cards start to split. Did you feel them? They kind of popped at one spot. And if you lift your right hand completely, we don't want them to fall here, but you can see, if you look closer, you can see the cards have cut at one spot. And let's make sure we got the right one, because even though that's cool, we do need to get the right card. So was it the 5 of diamonds?
Yes, it was. Very good.
5 of diamonds. Thank you so much. No pain? No pain?
No,
You are now healed, Chuck. You're
Really
healed. It's a great byproduct of finding the 5 of diamonds. He's also healed from his incompetency, which is nice. Sorry. Shh. Some of these jokes are just for me, apparently. Now, this is a great trick. I'll explain this real quick. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. This is kind of like a handling of the haunted pack. If you're in the back, you might not have seen what happened, but when he lifts his other hand, you can kind of pretty clearly see that the deck is split into 2 halves. And it's one of those tricks where I wouldn't say it's necessarily better than the regular haunted pack. It's just different because it can happen in their hand, which is cool because I can stand, 50 feet away and I don't have to be hooked up to it. There's no fishing line, there's no invisible thread, none of that stuff. It's just a gimmick. It's a mechanical card. And when I came here a few years ago, I'm not sure if I have this gimmick with me, but I have some different uses for it. Basically, it's kind of it's sometimes called the spook gimmick. Sometimes it's called the Ouija card. It's been put out in a couple different forms. Ted Bayet put it out. Tom Gagnon had a version. Warren Stevens put out a version. And it's basically a double card, like a thick card. And then there's a paper clip size thickness wire that is kind of stuck inside there. And this won't really make much sense until you look at it. But if you look really close, there's like a C-shaped slit there. And this little peg that's sticking out the top can get set to the bottom. And it's just going to spring back. It's going to flip right back to the top. So essentially what you're supposed to do if you just buy the trick, it teaches you one thing in the instructions if you buy it. It teaches you to have the card replaced and then just square the cards up, and that pretty much does it. Now the little wire is set, and the instructions tell you to do this. Have them put their finger on it, and then tell them to just relax. And that's a really cool trick because the cards will spin, and they can feel the cards kind of pushing their finger away, and it's pretty cool because there's no thread or anything to worry about. And then to reveal the card, you are taking the gimmick away, which is nice because it's not like you're running away. You have to move that packet. So if you wanted to, this could go boop right on your butt because this has got metal in it, so it could be stolen on the magnet. Because that's kind of like a perfect position to be in. But you don't have to run if you're not getting too much heat on you, that's going to be the selected card. What's nice is it's kind of a versatile gimmick in that you can do the haunted pack, you can do the in the hands version, which I showed you, which is essentially just what you do. I just hand the person the deck, and the little peg is sticking out here on this end. I just have the card replaced, square the cards up, put the cards in his hands, making sure the person understands what they have to do, because if not, the cards will kind of fly apart. And that's not the worst thing, but you don't want that to happen right away. So you just have them squeeze, and then just tell them to relax, slowly lift their top hand, and that's what happens. The cards will cut just like that. And then I just reach over and I lift these away, and that's where the gimmick is, and then they'll turn this over themselves usually and kind of reveal the card. And it's a really great trick. I don't have to kind of sell the haunted deck. It's obviously a great trick. It's a different version of it. Like the original would kind of cut, and then the cards would cut back, and the card would be sticking out. And there's other versions of it with loops and thread reels and all that stuff. And I'm not biased. I think some of those are really good, but there's just sometimes you can't do them because you're outside, or it's just bad lighting conditions, or the thread broke. Maybe you broke your reel and you can't suck it back out. It just won't go again. So it's nice to have a backup plan like this. And I pretty much always have this with me. It can get folded in half and bent, and it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. I'll kind of pass it around here in a second, but I'll show you one more thing that's kind of neat. You can do the regular setup, and then if you put the cards in the box, did I hand the box away, or did I put it somewhere while I was talking?
You put it somewhere.
Oh, here it is. Good thing here. Thank you. If you just put it in the box, you can squeeze it, and then as you kind of relax, the card will rise. All right, or you can make it jump out like that. The cool thing is you have kind of total control over it. So if you want it to jump out or slowly rise, you can do that too. And what's happening is that little metal nub, if you look close, is kind of right at the end here. So when you have the cards in the box, you're kind of staring at it, so you just kind of want to tilt it toward yourself. If I snap my fingers, I can slowly relax and it'll come up. Or if I want to snap my finger, oops, the nub went all the way down in there. Sometimes I will snap my fingers and nothing happens. There we go, I'll set it up again. But it just looks cool. I just want to show you how you can make it, maybe not. What's going on here? I think when I bent it, I actually worked it a little bit too much. I have to make it look cool when it jumps out. There we go. Maybe not.
We get the idea.
There we go. No, I think it was the faulty card box. It's been mangled a little bit. But essentially, the card will fly out if you want it to. The card can rise if you want it to. The cards can cut if you want it to. And it's all with one gimmick, which is pretty nice. I will pass this around, like I said. I put it in my bag once again. So pass that around. You're more than welcome to look at that and try to kind of piece it together yourself. Where I have them, they're really, really cheap. They're only $10. But I think it's cool to have an option when you want to do the haunted pack or a rising card and you just don't have the thread or anything like that. Is there any questions about that at all? I kind of sped through it really quick, but it's not really an original idea to me. I just have some original touches to it. Like I think the in the hands thing is pretty awesome. Yes.
Can that gimmick be like in the deck where you're doing the tricks, or is it a little bulky? Or?
Yeah, for sure. As long as it's on the bottom, you can shuffle
Right,
around
keep it
it.
in the
Yep.
bottom.
Because every time you go to shuffle, just kind of slip it and keep it on the bottom. You can definitely do a couple of different effects with it and keep it in there. But more often than not, I just have it in my side pocket, do a bunch of stuff, and then when I want to do it, I'll just hand the deck out to be shuffled and then top it in. But yeah, that's a good question. You can totally work around it. The nub will get in the way if you want to do a riffle shuffle, but you can do overhand shuffle and work around it. And while the deck is set, once you set the gimmick up, you can shuffle as well, which is kind of nice because usually when you set a deck up, if you're using a loop or something like that, it's kind of hard to shuffle around it because you're kind of stuck there. So
You make it in a joker so you can get rid of it?
that's a good idea. The other thing you could do is, Stephen Tucker, I think, has the idea of just having it be a different color. So when it rises up, he's like, oh, that doesn't even belong here, and then he just puts it away from the wrong deck. I think that's a great idea. It's pretty subtle and bold, but it works. But that's a great idea. It could be a joker, so you can just get rid of it and then do some more effects with it. And you can also mask it. That particular one, I think, is like a 3 of clubs or 3 of spades. But you can also make it into like a face card, so that way you can kind of flash it, and they can't see the gimmick at all. The C-shaped slit will be camouflaged within the court design, so that's pretty good. When you buy it, you never know what it's going to be, if it's going to be a joker or whatever. But you can just split another card or peel that off and slap another one on there. And I've had a lot of people buy them, and then they'll put a different back because they want to use it for a tarot deck, to do like a haunted pack with a tarot deck. So you can just use the gimmick inside and then slap on whatever back design you want, or go from there. Any other questions? Yes, was that a hand up there? Just stretching? Okay, I understand. I'm with you. That's pretty much it for the Ouija card. Before that, I did, let's see, what did I do? Oh, I did the coin thing. You know what? While I'm on a roll here, let me do one more thing because I want to do this while I'm still thinking about it. I've got a couple different things here. I've got a bunch of books and a newspaper. I usually use like a local paper, and this is the USA Today, so that's kind of local for everybody. And I particularly grabbed the sports section. It doesn't really matter what we use, but a paper is great because it's full of thousands of words and thoughts and pictures and ideas, just lots of random information. I want it to be completely random, and I want to see if I can send some information to someone, or maybe vice versa, pick up some information from someone. And let's try someone back in the cheap seats, way in the back. Was Don, was it? You don't actually have to come up, but we're going to have you kind of help out with the first part of the experiment, Don. I'll just kind of flip through the paper here and stop me at any page you want, Don. Right there? Perfect. Let's see, this is actually 2 pages. So I'm going to tear this in half. And I don't want you to think that I have anything palmed in my hands or that there's any pockets in the paper to do any switches or anything like that. So I'll show you everything is above board. I'm going to keep the table pretty clear. I'm going to tear this in half, Don, and we'll give you one more choice, and then we'll kind of move it on so we can have other people make choices too. I'm going to tear up one of these halves and hand another half to somebody else. Whichever piece you point to, Don, will be the half that I hand off. So don't let me influence you, but just point to a piece whenever you feel like it. This one here, I like Don. I like this guy. Okay, I'm going to hand this off to you. Do you mind, sir? No. And I just want you to kind of follow along with me. We're going to take the piece. It doesn't matter which way you hold it, but just take it and kind of tear it in half, respectively. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but neatness does count a little bit. All right. Excellent, excellent. And then we'll do it in half again. All right. And so now basically we got 4, and then we're just going to keep going. All right. I just wanted to kind of set this premise up. We don't want to be too messy, so now I've got 8. You guys don't have to follow along with me, but I think I've got 16 here. This is where it gets difficult for me. 30-something. All right. 32. So this is like 64, I think. I don't know if you're still with me, but 64 and 64 is like almost 100, so we got a lot of pieces. And then, yep, you're right along with me, almost the same size here, so that's perfect. We've got about 100 pieces there, about 100 pieces here, and we'll just get rid of these stragglers here. And we've got, let's say, roughly 200 pieces. I'm going to give them a little mix, okay? Watch this in the back. This is pretty cool. Perfect Pharaoh. That'd be sweet, though, wouldn't it? Roughly 200 pieces. Let's see, sir, with your arms crossed there, would you mind just name a number between 1 and 200?
16.
16. Wow, that was good. I liked Don's answer, and I liked your answer too. When it was like 72, that's a long, boring trick. I've seen people do it with cards, though. Almost, right? 16. Here we go. All right, if I can square these up just right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of sticking together. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was a lot easier when L Fran did it. 12. Sorry, humidity. 13. There's no 14, 15. Did you say 16 or 17?
16.
16. So the next one here, I don't even want to look. I don't want you guys to accuse me. I don't know if I have 1 or 2. Let's see. I've got 1 there. So I'm going to hand this to somebody close. Would somebody in the front row just grab that? Usually I would hand it to the person that stopped me up, but just to keep it fast, we're going to just hand it to you, and we'll use this as an example here. I want you to just look at either side of the... I'm not going to turn that way, just so I don't want you to think I'm peeking. Look at either side of the paper, and if it's a picture or something, you can focus on that, or if it's a word, just something, look at something that you can focus on. This has got lots of words on each side, but it might be something like this. It might have some words, like this says location is viable, intake, event, and then there's just a picture. So just focus on something. You got a word or something that you can focus on. I'm going to see if I can pick up the first letter. The first letter is usually difficult for me because I have trouble with letters, which is going to be hard because it's a letter. There's an A, an E, an I, or an O, or a U. That's the second letter, I think. Sorry, I had a vowel movement there. I apologize. You can use it. You can use it. It's either the first no. I can't even get the first letter. It's pretty difficult. But I heard a noise. It's a bouncing like a ball. Does that make sense? Okay. And this is I think this is something to do with a basketball player, pretty famous basketball player. I'm not sure exactly who it is, but I think he's tall. Would you for the first time say what word you're thinking of?
LeBron.
LeBron, pretty famous basketball player. And just in case, I had a backup plan right here. LeBron. We go. Now this is a great effect, and I don't once again have to sell it. It's not my trick. It's an old trick, and it does not have to be even done this way. I think maybe just ending with a famous basketball player would have been good enough for some people. Some people think if it's too perfect, if you get it too perfect, then that's maybe not as believable. And I totally am with you. It just depends on the situation and depends on your performance style, I think, more than anything. But essentially, I'm just sharing with you a technique to get the word. Because really, that's all this stuff is just you got to force a word or you got to get a word, you have to write it down. And then the rest of it is just all presentation and then revealing it in some funny way or some entertaining way. The best thing for me that I found is to just change it. Instead of writing the word down, draw, like I maybe would have drawn a basketball, or it would have been funny if maybe I even produced a basketball and started dribbling it or something like that, and that would have been close enough. It's like, wow, how did he know that? But if I just say, is it LeBron James? that's like too perfect. It's like, how did he make me pick LeBron? Somehow he made me pick it. And maybe they still are thinking that anyway, but I think it gives them some type of a glimpse of the process of what you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you had an accident when you were 8, and ever since then you've had these flashes of basketball players. I don't know what it is. That's a little bit cheesy. Maybe every time you get angry, like maybe it's the Incredible Hulk thing, like if someone punches you, you have psychic visions. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you have this Incredible Hulk syndrome. I don't know, those are kind of silly, but I think it's better than just saying, I don't know, somehow I just knew it was LeBron James, I just know, but just kind of giving them something to hang on to is more interesting. But really all I'm doing is just a timing force. There's 2 different ways I've handled it over the years. The way I like to do it now is just a timing as I'm going through the paper. I just time it so he says stop when I'm on the page that I want him to stop me at, essentially. It's just kind of like doing a riffle force or something like that. And it's not 100% surefire, but I'll be totally honest with you guys. You can just walk up to a newspaper and tear out a big piece and then tear it up in little pieces and do it, and it will still be just as amazing, even though you just picked the piece. Because you've got hundreds of pieces of paper in your hands. You've got thousands of different words, okay? But I found if you make it seem more impossible, they get to pick the page. All these little layers make it seem more impossible, a little bit stronger. So I'll show you the force real quick. I use 2 different ones. The one I did for you guys is the timing force, which is really easy. And the other one is just as easy. It's a riffle force, because this is kind of like the standard way a paper will come. But then some papers come almost like in a book format. They're not folded. And sometimes that's just like another section of your local paper, like the entertainment section will have a square shape to it, and it'll have like all the restaurants and live bands and things like that. But those are more like a book, and you can just flip through it, and you just put an ad in there, like a Home Depot ad or something, and it'll just go whack, and it'll stop like a short page, And it's great because you can flip through it, and they say stop, and you time it so it stops at the ad. You just pull that page out and throw the paper away, and they don't ever see the ad or anything. And even if they did, it's just an ad. It makes sense. But this is the one I like because it's just timing, and it's kind of bold, but I always just force the 4th page in. Essentially, it's kind of like the 3rd page in. If I grab another, do I have another one here? Well, I have the right here. The extras here. So essentially, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. I'll just put another one here, and I just totally cheat. I just grab like the front section or the sports section, whatever it is, whatever I want to use. Like last night, I was in New York, so I used the New York Times. I just used the front section, and I just pull out all the pages that I don't need, okay? Because nobody's ever going to check it. So now I've just got the pages I need, and I open this up, and I start talking, and then I don't even tell him what I'm going to do until I've started to turn the 2nd page. So he can't even stop me on the first 2, really. And then it's when I turn this one that I kind of say, it's actually as I drop this, I say, whenever you'd like, just say stop as I go through, as I go to grab the 3rd one. So if he stops me here, that's fine, because this is the page that I want, okay? And then I just tear it in half, like I did, okay? But he actually stopped me on the one that I really wanted, okay? It's all one piece, so if he stopped me on the 3rd one, I pull it up and I tear it in half. But he stopped me on the 2nd one, so I tear that in half and then hand the half to somebody. It doesn't matter which half they take. I'm just going to tear up all the pieces and put them together either way. But it makes it seem like more people have more choices. And if he doesn't stop me on that one, then we're done. And I just say, okay, that was a test run. Let's try it again. And then usually by then they'll get it. Or if not, like I said, I'll just reach in there and just grab the page and start tearing it up. I'll say, okay, well, it doesn't matter. But I will be totally honest with you. I've never had to screw that up. It's just one of those things. It seems so casual. It's a timing thing. I just go through. They say stop. And once I've got the page, I'm pretty much home free. You can do this totally impromptu if you want. I usually like to take the paper and look at it for a couple seconds before I do it, so that way I can choose the force word. But if I have to, someone can just hand me the paper, and basically what I do is whatever page that's chosen, doesn't matter what it is, I just pick a force word. Like in this case, I would choose LA wants NFL, just because it's big and it's bold and it's easy to read. And that's perfect, because on the other side is a picture, and that's what I want. Something where there's nothing to choose from but just one word. So that's the other part of the trick, is that you're trying to create this vision for the audience that that piece they're looking at has lots of choices on it. There's all kinds of words and pictures, but in reality it doesn't say anything but LeBron. It just says LeBron, and the other side is just orange or a picture. I can't remember what it was exactly, but you really didn't have too much of a choice. Sometimes it'll have like a date or it'll say something else on it, but I'm usually basically just looking for what I want. In this case, LA wants, and I just keep tearing around it. Okay? So you can see how this could be done impromptu. Because every time you tear the paper, it's just natural to keep the one side towards yourself. So as you're tearing it, you're just looking at this small area and memorizing all the information, and you're continually tearing around it until there's nothing left to see except for the little bit of information that you're reading. Okay?
Is it facing you the whole time?
Yeah, it's facing the whole time. So I've got the forced piece that I want facing me, and I'm just tearing around it, so all I can see is LA wants. I'm just keep tearing and tearing until there's nothing else. And then once again, like I said, on the other side is just part of a picture, so that's perfect. and then I do a couple of jokes and gags. I say, 64 and 64 is almost 100, and I do a couple of silly things. And then for magicians, I say, look, a perfect pharaoh. But for normal people, I just pretend to keep shuffling them, and I'm not really doing anything. I'm just taking the two packets together and kind of shoving them together and keeping the top one there, okay? And I purposely drop a few here and there to make it look like it's really messy. And then I'm just keeping this one on top. When I get to the point where I ask someone to name a number, I just lick my thumb, which is very natural. I'm holding pieces of paper, and that's pretty much it. I just lick my thumb so the force piece is stuck to my thumb. And now I can do like the easiest second deal in the world. I'm just pulling that back and just pulling these off one at a time, okay? And then whenever I get to the number, I literally just lift this up and grab it from my thumb and hand it off to them, okay? And as soon as I have this in my hand, I always pretend like I've got 2 or 3. I say, I don't know how many I've got, but I know what I've got. And then I purposely drop these, and everything's over. As soon as I drop that, there's no fail. Except for if that dude just wants to lie. I've had that happen before, where he just looks at it and goes, okay, let's see if Magic Boy wins me over this time, and he just thinks of a word that's not on there. So that's why it's really important to have an out. And I'll use 2 different outs. I'll either have a pad that has a gag out on it, just kind of like a gag revelation, or I always have a pad no matter what. There's a pad of paper because I'm always writing stuff down. So I'll just use, it's an old gag, I wish I could give credit for it, but it's just the old gag where you say, oh, I've got the prediction written down, but first I have to initial it. And then you just openly write it and then initial it really quick and then turn it around. And it usually gets a pretty good laugh. It's an old gag, but that's much better than just being like, sorry, Let's try a coin trick. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. And that's okay because sometimes failing in mentalism is good. So maybe that's part of the thing and you just move on and then you nail it after that. So that's okay too. Yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed you. Why do you have the backup?
In case they look at it and just make up a word and want to mess with you. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have somebody pick a card and they just lie and say the wrong card.
So then if they lie, then what do you do? What's your...
I've got 2 different ones. One of them is just kind of like a gag revelation, and then the other one is I have a pad that's blank. And then I say, wouldn't it be amazing if I had, like, let's say they say popsicle, and that's not what it's supposed to be. I say, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if it said popsicle on this pad of paper? But first I have to initial it real quick to make it official, and then I just write popsicle. So it's just a stupid gag, but it's much better than just admitting defeat. They'll wonder why you built that gag up for 6 minutes, but
Or the no gag.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I have another gag revelation that's just like the no. You could use any type of gag, really perfect example. Yeah, anything like that would work great. And those aren't things you necessarily have to have on you, just something you can write down really quick to get yourself out of that situation. And of course, I only learned that because I had to, and I just had that situation pop up.
So did you actually do this on the fly, or did you have this piece planned, or this section of the paper planned?
In this case, I did,
Okay.
just because I had time.
The reason I said so, because even if like I had picked the word point on the back, above it says U.S. Open, so when you said bouncing, you still would have been kind of close.
That's true. And last night I had the same thing because I had the word, and it's not a very good one, but it was back, but it was really big, and it just happened to be a perfect spot in the paper, so I just used back because I figured that's easy. There's a lot of things I can use. I can draw a picture of someone that's facing away. There's a lot of ways to interpret back. Maybe you're coming back from a trip or something like that. But on the other side, so the word was back, but on the other side was a picture of someone's butt. So no matter what side they looked at, it was a back, right? And that's perfect because I can't always get lucky like that, but a lot of times it'll just happen. So I'll try to look for a link, and that's exactly right because the bouncing thing. And then sometimes there will be a case where I just can't find anywhere on the paper where there's just a picture on one side. So there has to be a word on both sides, and that's okay. It's as long as you know what they are. Just remember what they are, so that way you can kind of fish for the first one, and then if he just looks at you like I don't know, then you know it's the other one. Or you get lucky and they're kind of equivocal and they both kind of mean the same thing, which is nice if that works out for you. The other thing that I will do sometimes is it's an old card force, because the great thing about this little tool is all it is essentially, is you can do it with anything, a brochure, even a menu, just anything that's got words and information on it. You just tear it up in little pieces and then deal through it. Originally it was like a WAN-Ed test, and then Koran kind of popularized the idea of having them name a number first, and then he would tear the paper. So then he would position the force piece into the number they named. So they would say like 7. Then as he tore the paper, he'd make sure that piece got put in the 7th position, which is a great idea, but it's just too much math for me to do. And even if you have a crib and stuff like that, I think licking your thumb is essentially just as good for me because it's going to look the same way, and people will remember it the same way. You don't even have to have someone's name and number. You can just deal through them and have someone say stop if you want. You can do a lot of different ways.
If he had your idea, he would have done it your way.
I think so too.
If that's the case.
The other thing is, The double deal force, for lack of a better term, Al Leach is credited with it a lot. Maurice Fogel used it too. But you just have your force cards on top, the top 2 cards, and you have them start to deal through the cards, and they can stop whenever they want. And then you take that pile and have them deal it into 2 piles, and then the force cards are on top. Is everybody with me on that one? You kind of have to visualize it. But you can do that with pieces of paper. You just tear up the pieces of paper, keep your force on top, and then I start to deal the pieces in their hands, and then they say stop whenever they want. Throw the rest of the pieces away. Now I hold out my hands and say, now deal the pieces you have into my hands. And then they deal them. And then I say, no, just point to a hand. Now it's just a simple equivocate. Or if you want, you can have 2 force pieces, but I like to just use one. So I just either throw one away or hand the top piece to them. And you can go like that. I like that because they get to deal through the pieces. It seems like they have a lot of choices in it. And it's just a simple, mathematical force, but I think it's a good use for it because it's not cards, so they're kind of thinking a different way there. And that's easier to do with magazine because it's glossy, and those are much easier to handle, especially for a layperson because the paper is a nightmare to try to deal with. It's very sticky, and if you have any moisture on your hands, the pieces stick. And you will get the newsprint on your fingers, so you have to... It's always good to have a wet nap, I guess, no matter what, so it's just a good thing to have, right? I haven't had a wet nap in like 14 years, but it is a good thing. All right, maybe longer than that, I don't know.
What happens if they call for 115?
Well, that's good. That's kind of what I want. The first time when I say a big number, I say there's like over 200 pieces, so name a number. And then I'll look them straight in the face. I'll say, now I'm going to deal down to the 115th piece. And when I hand you this piece, I want you to go into the corner, and now people will start looking around. Really, is he going to deal down 115 pieces? And then I'll kind of make a joke about it. And I'll try to get that to go as long as I can. If it's magicians, they'll usually know that I'm kind of setting them up for that joke. But yeah, usually I'll just kind of joke around and say, all right, I think it was John Rockerbaumer, I saw him do this. He said, think of a number between 1 and 1 million. No, that would take all day. How about between 10 and 20? Well, that's great, So I kind of do that. I say, all right, that would take all day, so let me just mix them up a little bit more. Just name a number between 1 and 20. They're all mixed up, so it really doesn't matter. And it really doesn't, obviously. If there's 1 million pieces there, and it was a free choice, it really wouldn't matter if it was 1 in 20 or 1 in 200. So. And that's kind of what Karan used to do. He would just tear it up into 16 pieces, so he had 16 pretty large pieces. And he would actually, the force piece would be handed to them, and it would have a sticker on it with the word written in marker. So there wasn't even any playing around. It was just a sticker, and it said the word, and he would often force the word sex. So they would look at it and laugh. And he would say, "What is that, amusing to you?" And then when they revealed it, it was kind of like this funny thing. I think that's great because he didn't even really have to do anything. He could have just handed them the sticker. It's like, here, think of this word, And that's kind of what you have to do sometimes, just brute force, but sometimes that works. Anybody else? Any other questions or observations or anything? That's pretty much it. There's not a lot. The force is up to you, either the timing force or the riffle force. And there's other ways to force, pages in a paper. But like I said, if you just went through the paper and said, oh, let's use this page. This has got lots of words on it. And just start tearing it up. George Kaplan originally had the idea of, as you tear it, just read the information and kind of memorize it. And then he would put all those pieces into envelopes. And then all those envelopes would be mixed up. So 10 minutes later, there's a word chosen. And he would use a crisscross cut force with the envelopes to force the piece. So it was really a great idea because it was all self-working, but it was just all procedure, which is a problem for a lot of mentalism. So I just wanted to get, cut to the chase. I'll just lick my thumb and memorize the word. And that might not work for you, but I found I just always have my thumb. And I'm always prepared to do that. And there's nothing better than just having someone say, hey, I heard you can do this thing. I've got a paper. Let's try it. And you can pretty much do it. You can pretty much always do it and not fail. If worse comes to worse, you've got a lot of confetti and you can just go, hey, and throw the confetti in the air.
Have you done it with a single sheet? Just for the heck of it?
Yeah, I have, just because there was a few times where I was handed a paper. I actually did it in Mexico and I couldn't read the paper, so I just said, oh, I recognize that word. It said siesta. So I'm like, all right, I'll go for siesta. And I basically just pulled out that sheet and tore it up really quick. Because once again, even one sheet's got hundreds, probably thousands of words and lots of information on it. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. I've found you can add all those extra layers, make it seem a little bit more impossible. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes they'll just forget all that anyway and just remember you have this piece of paper, tore it up, and they thought of a word. Another guy we talked about earlier, Tim Conover, has an amazing version of it, and there's been tons of different versions over the years. Some of them kind of had similar aspects. A lot of the times it was like a packet that you would kind of steal off. That's how Fogel used to do it. He would steal off a packet of pieces and then add those in, and all those pieces were the same. They're all forced pieces. And that's a really great way to do it. That's how I did it for a while. But then I just got sick of doing it. I'm just lazy. It wasn't a big setup at all. I just got lazy buying all the papers and setting it up. So I just figured this is easier. And I'm not trying to say that lazier is always better. But if you can compromise without compromising the effect, then I say why not. So, yes.
You said like siesta. Is that the only word that was there, or do you have?
That was the only word that I recognized with my Spanish. And plus it was big. I usually purposely go for a big, bold word.
Where they can't choose another word.
Exactly. Because obviously if there's a big, bold word, there's not going to be much else space for any other smaller words. And I'm not opposed to giving them a piece with many words, just as long as you know what all of them are. Maybe you could give them a piece with like an entire sentence on it, and that's totally fine too. Because usually the sentence just is going to cover one subject. Like it could be LeBron James was arrested last week or something, you know. But as long as I get LeBron or basketball or, you know, something part of that thing. And I think that's, you know, like I said, sometimes a lot stronger if you can just get, you know, maybe just the basketball element of it as opposed to just saying, you know, LeBron. And I kind of did this on purpose because it's kind of weird. If you think about it, I was kind of slowly revealing it to Chuck, and I said the basketball thing. And that's great if you're on the other end and you're thinking of LeBron and the person that's trying to read your mind says basketball. That's kind of a cool moment because you're like, oh, okay, he knows what it is. And the person that's experiencing it has a cool moment. And then you slowly reveal that you know what it is. You have them reveal it, and then you say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I heard the basketball player was LeBron. And then you reveal the kind of like the kicker that you knew it all along. So it actually cancels itself out. It's like, well, he was just playing along. He knew what it was the whole time. But for some reason, it doesn't feel that way when you present it. So it's just up to you. I say play around with it and feel how you want to do it. You don't even need to use the kicker. You could just do part of the revelation. So I'm gonna wrap this up and clean up the newspaper. But before I do, is there any other questions on that at all? Yeah.
When you forced or kept the side that you wanted.
Oh yeah, that's good.
You did say though, point, and I will give that.
Right, I didn't really cover that. And so this is basically what's going to happen here. Like, let's say Mavericks is my forced word, and that's perfect because it's in the corner, it's big, and once again, it's just a picture of some dude's head, and it's an actual basketball player, so it's going to make sense either way. So that's a perfect thing to do. And I tear this in half, kind of. So obviously I want to keep this. And it doesn't really matter. I found it doesn't matter which one I shake. It's because the whole thing's so equivocal. So I say, in a second, you're going to tell them to take this piece of paper and don't let me influence you however you want. Sometimes I'll lick the paper, just do something silly, you know, just be obvious about it. And if they point to this one, then I keep it, obviously. But if not, then I just hand it to that guy and have him tear it up with me. But if they point to this one, then I'm not even going to use that one. Then I'm just going to tear this up and use it. But I found it doesn't matter. It's just kind of like it's making more people involved. Does that make sense?
So you're going to give him the other half, the bottom?
Yeah, I would just tear this in half.
Give that.
Yep, and give him that.
So
So no matter what, he's still going to help me tear something up, but maybe just not the bigger piece, just a smaller piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Somebody else was a... Oh, you got it?
Yep.
Is there anybody else? And once again, this is something that you don't have to stick to newspapers, but just anything that's got information on it. A lot of times I'll stop wherever I'm performing and I'll go to like the local... wherever the gas station service area will always have the tons of brochures for all the local stuff, so I'll just grab a couple of those and I'll fan them all out like a deck of cards, and I'll say pick one, anyone you want, and they'll pick that one and we'll tear it up. And it just seems more topical and local for wherever you're performing, which is always nice, you know. It's kind of just weird if you just have this thing that you pull out of your bag and then they use that. And I'm not opposed to that either, because I just happen to have these books that I'm going to use here in a second that aren't yours, but it's nice to have something that if you can't borrow it, that they really recognize. That's why when I do the book test, I've for the longest time used a dictionary, because it's like as soon as you pull it out, just the colors people recognize and they just accept it. It's kind of iconic. So, we good on the newspaper? If we are, I'll move on to the next thing here. Did everybody get a chance to look at the Ouija card gimmick? Everybody see that? Cool. Move this out of the way real quick. We'll do one more thing, and then we'll take a break. This is another kind of like mental or mind reading thing, and I've been doing the mentalism stuff for kind of the last 10 years, but I didn't really start to incorporate it into my professional work right away, because I didn't really know how to do it, because I wasn't serious. I never have been like a real serious performer, and a lot of mentalism is presented in a serious way, so I had trouble with it, and then eventually I figured out a little bit how to make it mesh. And one of the things people always say is, can you really do it? Like, especially my friends and people that aren't magicians will say, do you really be able to like predict the lottery? Can you really like sense when people are thinking of something? And I don't want to just say no, but I sometimes have to, because I feel bad. So I've created this way to kind of prove that you can, because people always say, well, if you can really predict the future, then just predict the lottery and then be done with it. So tonight I'm going to actually do that. I have a way to predict the lottery. I've got some scratch-offs here, 3 scratch-offs, and we'll let a lady's choice here just point to any scratch-off here. We're going to predict the lottery here. The middle one there. And I don't know if I have, well, I've got a silver dollar. That's almost as good. Now these are pretty much all the same, I think. Yeah, there are 3 like amounts. I don't know if you guys are familiar with scratch-offs, but the way this works is if you get 3 like amounts, you'll win. So if you get like 3 $20 or 3 $4,000, whatever, you'll win. So I'm just going to... Okay. I don't want you to think I'm tampering with this. I'm going to actually hand it to you, but see if you got 3 like amounts there. If you do, it's not impossible because I've been doing this for about the last 2 years and I've actually given away about $300 worth of money. So do you have any like amounts there?
I have to get my glasses. To
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I just didn't want you guys to. You guys probably won't believe me, but okay, I'll let you confirm. There doesn't look like there is. I see 2 20s. There's a 4. It looks like there's a 4,000 or 40,000.
Yes. 220s.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've actually predicted. Thank you so much. Predicted the lottery. Thank you so much. Now we'll carry on. I can sense there's still some skeptics in the back, so we'll carry on a little bit more. You probably have seen this, and that's a little souvenir for you. I would usually give you the quarter as a souvenir, but I have the silver dollars. We've got 2 more. 2 more. We'll play a little raffle later. You guys have all seen this before, and maybe not all of you, but some of you have seen this before, where you kind of create a card. Like one person will name odd or even, somebody will pick a color, somebody will pick high or low, somebody picks a suit, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to do that. We're going to kind of create a color. But I want to see if you guys can pick up what I'm thinking of. So I'm going to think of the color and then the suit, and then I'll kind of send this to people. I need to find kind of a random volunteer here, so we'll find someone random. We'll just use the frisbee here. Let's see oh, Chuck! It's so random! So, do you mind? Is that cool, Chuck? You don't have to get up or anything, but we'll try to do, we'll do the color first. Basically, I'll count to 3, and then I'll snap my fingers, and all Chuck has to do is just pick red or black. So the first one's easy. It's a 50-50 shot. Basically, I'll snap my fingers. Whatever color pops into his head, he's just going to say. So here we go, Chuck. Ready? Now.
Red.
Once again, I like Don, I like Chuck, I love you guys. You guys have great answers. But I don't want you to think I'm feeding it to you, so you really can pick red or black. Is that cool? Because it's totally up to you, Chuck.
Red is great.
Excellent. I like that. I agree. Inside, I've got the deck, and inside is another prediction, hearts or diamonds. You get to decide.
Hearts.
Now, the most important part, the actual value, ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen. Really, any one of those, Chuck, whatever heart pops into your head.
7 of hearts.
Good choice. The 7 of hearts. How cool would that be if I actually had the 7 of hearts in this deck? Layman loved that joke. funny, Layman. Okay, you've probably seen this before. I am a little bit embarrassed because it's not a great magic trick, but I did make a prediction. I wrote it down. It was like a visual prediction. I didn't really draw a picture of it, but I wrote it down. And where did it go? Oh, no, it is here. Underneath my pad of junk. Now, we did meet a couple of years ago at the lecture, but we didn't set anything up. You have to admit, I have not set anything up with this card. If this is his card, that's pretty amazing. I have your card written right here, Chuck. Your card!
Oh, wow.
I've got a jumbo 52 on one in there. I'll pull it out. Don't make me do it. Okay. I'll usually do a couple more layman-esque gags, and then eventually reveal my prediction. I did make a prediction. I was kind of in haste, in a hurry this morning. I took out one card from another deck. I thought, maybe Chuck's going to show up. Maybe he'll say the 7 of hearts. I just shoved it in my pants real quick, so there's only one way to prove it, Chuck. You seem like a nice guy, so I'll get it. Don't worry. I'm going in. Here we go. Thank you, Tom Mullica. Feels like a club. You sure it's a heart? Oh, I think I almost lost it there. Oh, let's be careful. I don't know where I've been. It's okay, I'm wearing a tongue. Get it? Tongue. One card in my pants. If that matches, that means somehow Chuck knew it was in my pants. Which is weird, but amazing nonetheless. Ladies and gentlemen, perfect match, 7 of hearts in my pants. I understand.
I like the frisbee, though.
Thank you. And guys, here's my favorite part. I just take the cards, put them back on top, and then just do this, and I'm reset. How's that? That's pretty cool.
Reset away.
This is another routine that I kind of worked on for a long time and just tried to figure out how to make it simple and no work and self-working. And that's really true. I wrap this back up in the handkerchief and I throw it down. And I don't know, maybe it was like 4 minutes when I just did it there. But usually I'll try to milk out as much comedy and byplay as I can so I can get like 7 minutes out of this little routine that just goes in a handkerchief and resets instantly. And that's so important to me because I do a lot of shows and my bag is usually a mess. And once again, I don't think it's so important that it's neat and tidy because I'm lazy, but it's important that it's strong and it fits in my case and it resets. And it just happens to be a good trick, which is all nice. Originally, I would just palm a card, which like most people would do, and then you unzip and then reach in there. Just like you're doing card to pocket, palm it and then reach in there and pull it out. Some of my favorite magicians, Matt King, Eric Mead, and Tom Mullica. I saw them all do different versions of Card to Fly, and they were all really funny. And so I just kind of was influenced by them. And Matt King does it in his show. He does a family show, and he actually pulls it from his pants several times. But he's got a lot going for him. He's very likable. He's very non-threatening. He can get away with anything because he's awesome and he's just so charming and funny. Me, on the other hand, a little bit, but not as much. And also, there are certain people that probably just couldn't get away with it at all without being creepy. So I think you just have to take into consideration of who you are and have some self-awareness before you do this trick. So that cuts out a lot of people, I understand. But the most important thing is just to know that you can do it in kind of a lighthearted way. I'm not saying you can do it at the daycare show or at the kids show, but you can definitely do it at a place where maybe not at a restaurant, but you can do it and get away with it and make it lighthearted. Or you can go the opposite end. And I saw I saw some Mullica clips where he was doing it and he was going on the other end. He was just laying it on really thick. He wasn't cursing, but he was just laying it on really thick innuendo, and people were dying laughing. And that's the thing, he was in the moment. So just be mindful of that. But what's cool is you can do the whole effect with all the gags and all the jokes and still just reveal the card from your pocket or an envelope or a wallet, and it's still kind of funny. So I'll show you the routine. And basically my end choice was to use a many teckle deck because that enables me to have a duplicate card, so I don't have to palm anything. I just have an extra card there. And I just like to think of it as an open index. Usually you would have an index in your pocket and you fish for the card, which is cool. But in this case, I just have it openly and I just go through it and pull out the card that they name. And because I do that, now I have instant access to the duplicate, so I can produce that from wherever I want. So I do have both decks, so if he chose black, I do have a black deck. Because if you're with me, in order to have duplicates of every card, you'd have to have 104 cards, so you have to have 2 decks. So I've got a red deck, all the red cards are in here, and all the black cards are in the other. Actually, he was here recently. Ted Karmelovich has a routine that's got a similar principle to this with a pocket prediction, and it's very similar to Tommy Wonder's Queen Elizabeth with the money clip, which is awesome. Same concept. He just pulls out the card that they name, which positions the duplicate right where he wants it to be produced. So I just do that. I say, wouldn't it be amazing if the 7 of Hearts was in this deck? And that gets a laugh or a groan or whatever. I'll take either. And I just cut it to the top openly, and it's easy because they're all red cards. I can quickly find it and just cut it to the top. I just take the top card and put it in my pocket, or sometimes I'll just stick it to my forehead. I just want it to be seen and not forgotten. Okay, I just stick it somewhere. And now the duplicate is on top of the deck. It's also blue. All right, these are ruffed red-blue many teckle decks. That's kind of hard to say. So they look red, but every other card is actually blue if I spread through and separate the rough pairs there. So every card will have an odd back duplicate to it. So as long as I just kind of keep this neck tied towards myself, I don't have to hold that very long. As soon as they name the card, I just put the cards away in the box. And this isn't something that's a move, it's just procedural. I'm just putting the cards away, all right? And that's it. As soon as I put the cards away, I'm done. Because now the card is in my pocket. The duplicate card is in my pocket, and I have a slit in my pocket, which is actually a Michael Amar idea. He would load the card in his pocket way early on, and then later he could show his hands empty and unzip his fly and reach in, and you're just reaching in your pocket. I just have a slit right here in my pocket, so I can still put my keys and my coins and things like that. I'm not destroying my pocket, but I just unzip and just reach in the top. You can actually just reach in and pull out the top card from the box, or you can do what I do. As I put the cards in my pocket, I just do that. It's just gravity. I put my thumb and hold the card there as I drop the box first, okay? Because what you do is as you close the box, you just buckle the cards, just squeeze them, and that makes it really easy for you to put that flap in between a few cards. So that way when you go like this, oops, that way when you go like this, you can always retain one card really easily. It's just gravity. Either way, it's easy enough to steal that card. I'm just unzipping, reaching in there, and pulling it out very cleanly. And that's pretty much it. It's really self-working. You just are doing something on procedural fly. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the cards away. I usually grab the pad of paper that says your card. I have a couple of other gags. I've got like a gag wallet in here. I say, wouldn't it be amazing if your card was in my wallet? And then I open the wallet and I've got all these stupid gags. And then eventually I say, it was done in haste. I just quickly shove the card in my pants, and I'll usually try to get like a woman in the front row to take it out, and I'll say, no, it's actually, even though tomorrow's my birthday, I'll give, and then I'll unzip it. And I have all these silly lines depending on the crowd, And at the beginning, I purposely kind of want them to say black because then I can play with them. When I've got the red handkerchief, a lot of times they'll purposely do it. They'll just say black because they know that's going to get a laugh. And it will get a laugh. They'll say black and everybody will laugh because I'm obviously trying to get them to say red. And then I have a couple jokes that I use with them, and I'll say, we'll try it again, don't worry. And then before that, I've said, maybe we're going to try and tap into somebody's feminine intuition. And then I try to do it again, and he says red this time, and I say, okay, you're definitely in touch with your feminine intuition because you can't make up your mind. I'm just kidding. No, there's a lot of jokes like that are very situational. So these are things that are going to breed from that. That's why I said it could be 4 minutes or 7 minutes. Just depends on how you want to play it. The other thing that I'll do a lot is I'll produce it from an envelope or a wallet or something like that, and I'll show you how that works real quick. Let's see, where did I go here? You've got the red deck, so let's say they name a card. And I'm going to make a prediction, so this time my prediction... Oh, and by the way, the lotto prediction, it's pretty simple. Just usually works out that way. I'll explain the work on that later. This is really cool. This is like the easiest version. They just name a card, so you just go through. Let's say they say the 10 of diamonds. You just pull it out and say, wouldn't it be amazing if that 10 of diamonds I placed in my pocket was the same as the one that you named? That's like the easiest version because you just push it down. All right? You've got a card sticking out here. And you just go through and you pull out any card they name, which is a really easy double because they're roughed. You're just going to come up here, push that down, and then spread as you come to the front here. Okay. Good. And that's pretty cool because it's almost like the invisible deck. I used to work at a magic kiosk, like a couple weeks ago. No, long time ago. But it was a fun job, and I quickly realized the power of the invisible deck because I would demonstrate that trick, and people would always buy it almost instantly, and it was kind of a revelation because I realized they say something, and then you, bam, just produce it. It's just face down, the card they just thought of, and it's kind of hard to beat that. So this is the same feeling. They just name a card, and then bam, you instantly produce it and kind of show it. And I like that because now I can do an invisible deck or a thought of card revelation. I can do a kind of a brainwave trick where they pick a card, it's the only blue card. I can do 20 different tricks with a many-teckle deck that I can't do with an invisible deck. Well, that's not true. You can do a lot of tricks with invisible too. But my goal in having a deck like this is that if I'm going to commit a pocket to one deck of cards, I like it to do more than one trick. So it's nice to have these options. And this is a pretty cool thing that you can do as well. It's the same idea. Oops, did I put that back in here? The little dummy card that I use as my prediction, I'll use a blue card. You can take that blue card and put it here, like I just showed you, and do that move. Or you can take the blue card and put it in your inner breast pocket, so it's not really seen. But you just openly do that. You say, here's my prediction, I'm going to place it there for later. And you do the same thing. You just pull out the card, cut it to the top, and you say, wouldn't it be amazing if the 8 of diamonds was in this deck, ha ha ha. But remember earlier I placed a card in my pocket from another deck, it was that blue card. It's the same thing, it's right on top, okay? So I'm just doing the old Neil Elias card from pocket move, okay? I'm just doing this. You push the card off and then extend your fingertips. And it's great because it's blue, it looks like totally mismatched. It's a nice little move for not much work. It's just bam, there's the card you named, okay? And then the sneakiest way to do it, really, really sneaky, is to just take a blue deck, take a blue card, and then, do I have a blue deck laying right here? Close enough. I'm just going to take a red card, imagine it's blue, and then I place it underneath the table. But really what I'm doing is, I've got this card, and I place it underneath the table. It's like the world's easiest rub-a-dub vanish, okay? You just don't place anything there, all right? But I just couldn't quickly grab a blue deck. But just imagine that was a blue card, so that's my prediction. And then they just name any card, and then you just throw it underneath the pad. You say, okay, you want the ace of diamonds, and you throw it underneath there too. And that was the double, okay? And that's it. You're pretty much done. You just have to split them. You say, wouldn't it be amazing if the cards matched? You named the ace of diamonds. My prediction was the ace of diamonds too. And that was it. So that's no work at all. Just pretend to place a card down. And what I'll do to really sell that is I'll take the blue deck first, and I'll actually really place a card down openly so they can see it. And then I'll say, oh, you know what, second thought, what is your birthday? And they'll say September 4th or whatever. I'll say, oh, you know what, that changes everything. That changes everything. I'll take it, I'll put it back, and I'll pretend to find a new card, and then I'll do just the rub-a-dub vanish. So now it's kind of really set up, and they're really wondering what it is. And I'm just throwing the double down there. Just bam, just name any card, I just throw it underneath there with it. That's it. So it's kind of like 4 different versions that are like self-working. I'm going to put this away really quick. That's the roughed red-blue version. The tongs, obviously, are just a silly visual gag. You don't have to do that. But I will say, handing them the card with the tongs as a souvenir is much funnier than handing them with your hands. So just a visual thing. If you were to buy a many-teckle deck back like 80 years ago, this is what it would look like. It was like 10 of clubs, jack of spades, jack of spades. It doesn't matter what the order is, just as long as they're in duplicate pairs. So jack of diamonds, 3 of spades, 3 of spades. And you could dribble through the cards, they look normal. You could fan through the cards quickly, and they look normal. You could cut the cards a million times, they look normal. And that was the idea. You'd have someone take the cards and then cut them as many times as they want, and then whenever they want, just stop and take the card and put it in their pocket, or just hold on to it and hand you the deck back. And now all you have to do is look at the top card, and you know what their card is. Or, while they're turned around, you can take the top card and put it in your pocket, and then turn back around, have them put their card back, snap your fingers, and then they can reach in your pocket. So it's like instant self-working card to pocket, or you can just do a mentalism thing where you just reveal the card. You can do a instant stooge thing, which is really cool because while they're turned around looking at the card, you can show the entire audience the duplicate. So they turn back around, and now you can have the audience yell the card to them, which is an old idea, but it's a nice use of that deck. Howard Lyons in Ibidem has a bunch of really offbeat many tekel stuff. He used to do this, which I thought was a really cool idea. He would use this as a bogus second deal demonstration. He would say, look at the 9 of diamonds is on top. I'm going to deal a second here, watch, okay? Now it's pretty obvious if I do it bad like this. You can see, because I'm dealing them very slow, and also the card is face up, so it's really obvious, all right? So I've dealt those. But if I keep the 9 of diamonds on top and do a second deal to speed with my actual technique, you can see that it's almost invisible, that the 9 of diamonds retains on top. Yeah. That's a nice use for the many tekel deck. You're just cycling that duplicate back to where it belongs. But it's just a total offbeat handling of it. As soon as these cards are placed back on top, everything is back set and it's ready to go, and you can keep doing that. Eugene Loy has this idea, which I think is brilliant. He said, why don't you just make the deck like half and half? Because he never liked the idea of having all these rough duplicates really close to people, because if they're really close, sometimes they can pick up their thicker. So he would have half the deck normal and half of them many tekel. So he can handle some of the cards normally, even have them touch some of the cards, do some ambitious card sequences, a bunch of different card tricks, and then nail them with the many tekel stuff. And this was an idea that I combined with his, where each roughed pair, the back card of the pair, has a dummy signature on it. So no matter what card they name or pick, they can sign it, and immediately you have a pseudo-duplicate, which is a really cool idea. So essentially, they can just name a card. Let's say they name the 10 of diamonds. I'm sorry. Those are two. Did I shuffle them? Don't ever really shuffle them any tekel. There we go. Where's my marker? So this 8 of diamonds will be the selection. And someone will sign this 8 of diamonds with a signature that doesn't look like that, probably. And now, once again, you're doing like the world's easiest double lifts because the cards are roughed. So you set the deck right in front of them, and then I take the top card, and I just tear it into a couple pieces, and I'll go over to the side, and I'll flash the 8 of diamonds to someone here. And this guy can't even compare because he doesn't even know what his signature looks like, all right? And now all I have to do is tear it one more time, and now really nobody in the world can decipher it because the pieces are so small. You can still see the card, but you can't decipher the signature, all right? And now all I have to do is just fold this in half, and it's pretty much a small packet, and I can manage it like a coin or a ball. I just pretend to place it in my left hand, pull up my sleeve, snap my fingers, toss it towards them, and I just say, reach in your pocket and pull out a card, and they'll reach in their pocket and pull out their card. It's a great trick because it's like they'll remember doing signed card to their pocket. That's a really, really strong thing. And it's over in like 2 seconds. It doesn't take much time at all. And I think effects that are really strong, that are really short, can come in handy a lot of times. And this is a great trick even without the signature, just the old, it's called the Egyptian card trick. You know, you just put the cards in your pocket. And 90% of the time, when they reach in, they'll just grab the top card. The worst thing that can happen is they'll grab the wrong card, and then I just take the cards and I put the wrong card in the center, and I say, if I snap my fingers, your card will materialize back on top. It's kind of like the out, but it's still pretty good. But I'm telling you, that's a really strong trick, and I love the idea because you can do it with anything. If you have a signed duplicate, you can do torn or restored card, card to orange, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of different things you can do.
If they pick the wrong card, they can pick the bottom card, which is a double there, right?
Well, the only thing is I'm not using doubles for that.
You're not?
No, I'm using just, for this I'm just using regular cards. Yeah, but it really doesn't matter if they grab one card or 2 cards. Doesn't matter. They're just going to grab a double and it's going to stick together. If it splits, then they're not going to think anything of it.
It's like a men tackle deck, but it's not rough.
Exactly. There's so many different variations. You can use roughed. You can use roughed red blue. Originally, when they came out, they weren't roughed at all. They were just Svengali. So every other card was cut short. So that way, when you dribble through, you wouldn't see the pairs. You would see them fall singly. And then later on, they came up with all the different variations. Sometimes the other card was just marked on the back. So that way, when they touch one face down, you would just look to see which way you had to cut to position the duplicate. And then there's all the different
Are you
variations.
showing the faces of that before you do it now?
I'm sorry?
Are you showing the faces of that deck before you do it?
Before I do which trick? Which one?
The one where they go in their own pocket?
Yeah, with pretty much any version of it, you can show the faces. Just depends on how you show it. If they're not roughed, you have to dribble.
Right.
Or go through pretty fast, okay? But yeah, pretty much any of these effects I'm going to do, I'm going to switch in at some point. So they're going to be handling a normal deck at some point, and this is going to be switched in. Unless it's on stage, then I just kind of go right into it, and no one even touches the deck or sees it. In any case, it's just used for a prop, which is great because they never even see it, they never even come in contact with it. The last thing that I'll mention about the mated tackle deck is you can do a lot of cool stuff with just a regular deck. You can take a normal deck, and when it's in brand new order, if you do a couple of cuts and a faro, basically you've got the mated pair. So it's jack of clubs, jack of spades, two of hearts, two of diamonds. They're not duplicate pairs, but they're mates. So you can do a lot of the same stuff. It'll tell you what the other card is, obviously, if you cut to it. You can do a lot of the queuing things. You can do a lot of the mathematical stuff. And there's a ton of different things you can do where someone cuts to a card and then just puts the card in their pocket, because obviously the mate is on top or on bottom. So there's a lot of stuff. And that's all covered on the DVD and tons of other stuff. I just don't want to kill you with all the many tackle stuff. But there's so many different concepts. I can talk about it for hours. I just don't want to miss anybody. If anybody has a question. Yes?
What do you call that deck? I don't.
The actual full name is Meni Tekel, which is Hebrew from the Bible. It's from a Bible verse. Menetekel. It was called the Meni Tekel deck. And then it came out, there's a couple different versions of it. Originally it was actually Frederic Conrade that had the original idea. And then later on, Hull and all these different guys put out, different versions of it. But Burling Hull was the original one that kind of marketed it. It was originally called the self-shifting pack, because you could take the top card, put it in the center, snap your fingers, and it would be back on top because the duplicate was there. So everybody could do a shift now, or a self-shifting pack, yeah.
You just had the one deck in the handkerchief. I missed.
Oh, if they would have said black?
Yeah.
I just have a black deck sitting right here, yep. And a lot of times I'll have a black handkerchief there too. And I found that's just a silly gag, but I'll have the red handkerchief in my hand, and the black handkerchief is laying there with the deck in it too. And nobody ever knows the deck is in there, so it doesn't really matter. I can take this one, and if they say black, I say, "You sure?" And I say, "Okay, fine." And I grab the black one, because it's going to be funny no matter what. Or if I want to, I can sometimes get the biplay going back and forth. And then another thing you can do is when I do the red and they say black, a lot of times people won't see it there because they can't, the way they're positioned. I'll just grab the black one, and I'll say, "Yeah, I had that too," just in case. There's always one wise guy, and that usually gets a pretty big laugh or kind of a reaction to him too. So it's just kind of like, all these things are going to happen to you when you're performing it. People are going to purposely say the wrong things, or sometimes they won't. So you just have to be prepared and kind of go with it. And that is kind of like the fun part of the trick for me, because I'm just playing with the audience at that point. And then at the end, it just kind of all of a sudden sneaks up on him that, wow, that really was the card I just came up with, and it was in his pants. That doesn't make any sense. It's really weird. So I want it to be funny, but I want them to still have some type of an effect there. I don't want there to be, funny, 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 and there's kind of a trick. I still want there to be some type of punch there. And it's hard to do if you're too funny, so I got that going for me. I'm not too funny. So.
Did you ever do without the slit in your pocket and palm it off?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned at the beginning. I used to just do that for years, and I'm not opposed to it by any means. I still love that version. I just think it's cool that I can do it kind of totally self-portrait.
That way you're making all your jokes and then.
Yeah, I just don't have to worry about it. I can show my hand empty. And I didn't make a big deal about it for you guys, but when I do it for lay people, I make a big deal, because I'm usually wearing a suit, so I roll up one layer, and then I roll up my sleeve, and that's kind of a big deal. And then like I say, I first unzip it and then try to get someone to take it out, and then make a big joke about it. So it's kind of remembered that my hand is empty. But by all means, you can just, that's a tried and tested method as well. Yeah.
You ever that pocket thing is fantastic. How you
It's easy.
Do you ever like in the beginning of your show just have the card sticking out and never mention it until the very end?
Yeah, that's kind of what I think you should do. You have to just walk out, especially if it's red card. It's going to stick out. You're wearing a black jacket. People are going to see it, and then say, "Oh, you probably noticed this has been sitting here the last couple minutes." Name a card, and that's it. And then if they name black, pull out the black deck. If they name a red card, pull out the red deck. That's another way to do it. Just have one in each pocket, so that way you're ready to go. But usually I don't like to have all this stuff on me, so I just have everything laying there. Like the red deck will be here, the black deck will be there, and I've got a big B written on the back, so I'm not going to mess up. Nobody's ever going to see that side of the box, so it's no big deal. Oh, one other thing I will mention is, so this is it. I've got there's a B there, there's a little black B, and I've also taken the little half moon, and I've torn it so it's a bigger half moon. It's like a full moon almost, I guess. But that just enables my thumb to hit that card really easy. I don't have to fumble. It's just bam. I don't have to think about it. Yes.
If you have the card in your pocket in advance and they pick that color, so for example, you have a red card in your pocket.
Oh yeah, sometimes you just get lucky.
And they pick the red deck, then it's not the one that's in the back.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Card.
Yeah, that would be a little bit different. Yeah, that would be a different version of it.
How would you? If you.
Oh no, I know. Actually, you kind of confused me. I confused myself. Yeah, it doesn't matter because the red and black is just the color of the actual value of the card, not the back of it. It's always going to be a blue card because of the deck. Does that make sense?
What a red card.
If if you have a red, say a red card for example, in your pocket.
Oh yeah, you would just have to have the opposite many tackle deck would have to be a blue-red.
Right, but when you go through that, so do you play it so that they would pick the black deck, so that
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's the face of the card.
Yeah, the red and black is just for the actual. Yeah, like if it's a spade or a hearts.
okay.
You just have the opposite color in your
I don't know if I'm confused or if we both.
But how can you have the opposite color in your
Because
pocket
the
if you
back's,
have it
the
there in
back's the
advance?
opposite color. Both decks are red.
Oh, okay,
Black
got
and
it.
red is the face.
We're good.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Sorry, I think I was with you. Yeah, I was.
Could you just show us again, what's the move after the signatures, the actual signature?
Oh, sure. For that one, it's pretty simple. Let's see, I've got a couple more. Do I have another design in here? I was going to see if I could do it again, because I didn't have all of them set up in here. There we go.
Right.
So this is actually already signed, but they would have signed that, and then the duplicate is behind it. And basically, once again, if you've got the roughed cards, you don't have to even worry about it. You just flip it over, but if they're not. Yep. So I literally just set it right in front of them, take the top card, and I say, would you just put those in your pocket? And a lot of times I'm standing and people are standing too, so I'm not even going to set it down. I just say, would you just hold on to those, put it in your pocket real quick, just to get them out of the way. And it's perfect if someone's got a breast pocket, because that even makes that little force more surefire. For some reason, if the cards are up here, it's kind of almost impossible to take any other card than the top card unless you're kind of digging in there. And that's always going to be, a possibility if somebody just wants to fish around and find a card, and that's cool. But yeah, they just bam, set it right in front of them, take the top card, tear it in half. As soon as I tear it in fourths, then that's when I turn it around, because then pretty much both sides will show an index so they can confirm the card. And then once I tear it one more, then I'm safe, and pretty much, like I said, nobody can really identify anything. As long as you keep a 6 or whatever the value is in front of them, and make sure you don't leave any pieces later on. If you do, make sure it doesn't have a signature on it, I guess. That would be perfect, because there's nothing on that.
Are the backs of those marked so you know which one has a signature and which one doesn't?
No, but that's what I mentioned earlier. You can do it that way. I just have this mainly for demonstration purposes, but you can totally do whatever you want. Yep. And then the Vanish, I pull up this sleeve first. This is the old Mulaney Vanish, just ditch in your side pocket as you pull up this sleeve, and then you're done.
And when you had the signature, do you tell them to make sure it's a nice large sleeve?
No, that's a really important thing, because everybody worries about that. Don't have to tell them anything. They can put a little dot on there. I guess that wouldn't make any sense, but that guy isn't going to see it. You know what I mean? And by the time you get over here, I've got it folded up so small. Yeah, that's one of those things you don't have to worry about. Every once in a while, someone's just going to write something that's just not going to be like what it is, and that's okay, because there's no way you can prepare for everybody's signature. That's why I just write big blob all over there. And I guess you could say, make sure you write nice and big. If I see someone just go, I say, put your last name on there too, or something, put something else on there. But yeah, that's one of those things where if it happens, just deal with it. I'm not going to just give up and say, oh man, that doesn't look like mine. Here, 20 other people sign it too, you know what I mean? Just make sure that there's some ink filled up on that card. But yeah, that's a perfect question, because stuff like that happens in real situations. You got to know how to deal with it. And that's one of those things where if they do sign it and it matches perfectly, great, and that's what's going to happen most of the time. So
they never see, the person that signs it never sees.
Right. I mean, unless it's a table where you've just got 2 people, then you're kind of screwed, But yeah, usually I'm doing it for at least a group of 4 or 5 people. Unless they all, know each other very intimately, there's a big chance they're never going to even recognize each other's signatures, even if they did know what it was.
You can always write your birthday, draw a picture on there too.
Yeah, that's true.
They're a real small signature.
Yep. Draw an image, draw a picture. Yep, that's a good idea. You can pretty much draw anything. And what's great is as soon as you go to that last tear, there's really nothing distinguishable on there at all, so you're perfect. Was there another question around? No. So basically, you can see how the mini tackle deck is very versatile. There's a lot of different variations. You can use the roughed, the non-roughed. The coolest thing about it, like I said, is it's just very recognizable. When you pull out a deck of cards, it's one thing to pull out a deck of cards that's got like skulls or something on the back of them, but if you have a bicycle deck of cards, it's pretty nice. And there's not a lot of decks that are quality gaff decks made in bicycle. You've got invisible decks and like stripper decks, but the mini tackle deck kind of vanished off the face of the earth for about 60 years, and I kind of helped bring it back, so I think that's pretty cool. Any other questions about the mini tackle stuff at all? No? Is there any questions about anything before I go into the next thing at all? Any questions at all? Doesn't even have to be about magic, just could be about my...
Are you going to focus on the fly routine?
My food interest? Oh yes, the 3 fly. So we'll do that. Actually, you know what we'll do? How are we doing? What time is it?
About 5 after 9.
Okay. 10-minute break, is that something good to you?
Sounds good.